Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the OS module in Python, and as you can see there are a lot of operating systems, OSs, and the OS module in Python is for miscellaneous operating system interfaces. So if you want to work with paths, for example, there's a path module. If you want to work with the current system, then there's the sys module, but OS is for the miscellaneous ones. And the first thing we want to do is import OS. And you don't need to install it with pip because it's part of Python. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is the environmental variables. And what we're doing is we're taking os.environ, converting it into a dictionary, and then looking at the keys. And you can see you've got all these different keys, with notable ones being path and OS. We can actually just reference it like a dictionary to see what the OS is, and you can see it's Windows NT. Another thing that the OS module is really good for is working with directories, and that's something you can't do by creating files. So if you try creating a file in a directory that doesn't exist, you get an error. So the first thing we're going to do is list dir, and you can see in this directory the only file is notebook.ipynb. So what we could do is then create a directory. So now we're going to use the walk function, and what this does is it recursively looks through the directories trying to find what there is. So if we run it, we see in this directory there's dot, which is the current directory, which is another directory, and the notebook. Then if we go into the directory which we've just created, then it says there's nothing. Another thing we can do is make dirs. So here we're making multiple directories. We're not just creating a single one, we're creating test and then directory. And the reason we want to do this is because if we try creating directories like this using mkdir, then we end up creating a directory in a directory that doesn't exist, and so the whole thing would crash. And so now if we walk again, you can see that in the current directory we've got something, so this just is the current directory, then these two directories, directory and test, and then this file called notebook. Then in the directory there are no more directories and no more files. In the test directory there's one directory called directory, no files. And in the test/directory you can see it's using backslashes rather than forward slashes, but that's not much of an issue. There are no directories and no files. Another great system that OS have is for renaming files. So rather than reading a file, taking the contents and saving it all to a new file, you can just rename it using this function. And you can do files as well, but all we can do here is just rename directory dir, and then when we list the directories you can see this has been renamed. Then if we want to remove the directories that we've created, we've got this rumdir command, and we're going to remove test and dir, and you can see it says that the directory is not empty, test. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to delete everything inside it first, and then you can start to delete test. And so what we'll do here is we'll delete test/directory, and then we'll delete the directory called test. And that hasn't failed. And now when we list the directories, you can see the only thing we've got left is the notebook. And so using the OS module, we've been able to look around the directories, create directories, rename files, look at the path, and there are a few other things that are quite useful that we haven't covered. But the OS module, which has this OS error when something goes wrong, is really useful for working with various things that are miscellaneous and to do with the operating system. So you can see this has been a powerful tool, and hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again same time next week. Till then.